Welcome to the Life of Joey Calvo Podcast. I am Joey Calvo. Please continue to help the victims of the Texas floods and the California wildfires. They really do need our help as they are rebuilding their lives. I'm going to throw in ads right now, commercials to you, and before we start the podcast. Just hearing it and not seeing me. There we go. I apologize for that as well. Past couple days have not been the greatest. And today, if you haven't heard, a young 31-year-old conservative Republican political activist, 31 years old, was shot at a rally in Utah in the neck. And because of that, this country is really going out of control. To me, this country is going out of control. If it's not kids getting shot at a church going to school, if it's not kids getting shot at school or even at a recreation center, or even getting shot in a supermarket, or anyone getting shot anywhere, it's too much. It's too fucking much. Where I live in Philadelphia, Tuesday morning, I couldn't sleep. I was sitting on a deck, here at my desk, like I would do this podcast, and gunshots were fired right on my own street. This violence is getting out of control. It's gotten to the point where I'm losing people. People I care about. People that support me. I was told to go celebrate with Democrats. You think I'm happy about this? Fuck no! And you know what? I'm not the only one that's condemning this violence. Okay? On X, Gavin Newsom, and I'm going based off of CBS News, folks, in reference to this. Gavin Newsom condemned this shooting of this 31-year-old. Chuck Schumer, minority senator from New York, who condemned this violence. Yes, the policies that are going on in the United States right now may be off the wall and hurting citizens, but it does not mean to go out and shoot them. It's a fucking shame. And yes, everybody is getting hurt from it, including me. Okay? Yes, I'm unemployed right now. Okay? I'm even getting told, oh, nobody's going to support you unless you get a full-time job, and what hurts you or what disables you is not going to get you anywhere. You fucking don't know what's really going on with me. You know? It bothers me. And because of that, the biggest support I could ever have in my life is walking out a door. Temporarily. Possibly temporarily. But I felt because of that, it was throwing back things about it. It made me feel like a relationship fight where something from your past gets thrown back at you and reminds you of who you are. This person didn't mean it. I can't blame the person. It's just the feeling I get. It's just the reaction I get. And I've been very proud of myself over these past couple months, you know, and moving forward with things. But when I keep hearing about children being shot or political activists being shot or attempt on President Trump, I have to draw the line. Because it's a fucking shame. This is not how a country should be. Okay? And in my own opinion, Democrats and Republicans really need to get together and get their fucking heads straightened out. Okay? Come up with bills together that you both can agree on. Okay? Literally, come with bills that you both agree on that will make the country better and that President Trump will accept. Because right now, like I said, I'm unemployed. I'm having a problem getting a job. I admit that. I'm almost 55 years old. Who wants to hire a 55-year-old now? Not many people. Okay? And, you know, I may not be able to stand for 4 or 5 hours at a time either, because I had an injury to my right knee. Who would hire me for that? The violence needs to stop. All types of violence. Doesn't matter if it's in the city of Philadelphia, in the United States, in the world. Not only did, before I bring our guest out, and our guest understands, you know, what is going on. And I apologize to him if something should happen to this video podcast. But kids were shot outside of Denver, Colorado in a school. The violence needs to stop at this point.
Joey.
So today we have Brian Sachetta. And Brian, thank you so much again for the patience. He, like I said, he understands what just went on. And so, Brian, like I said, welcome to the podcast. He is the author of the Get Out of Your Head series, which you practically just heard me do over the past couple minutes. So, Brian, explain to us what led you into writing this series.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joey. Sorry to hear about your own struggles, and obviously for a lot of folks who are watching or listening, very tough day. Nobody likes to see violence on either side of the aisle. That's as much as I'm going to say about it. It's a tragedy. It's horrific. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, and before you even go on, I have a friend who is actually a political activist. Believe it or not, he's afraid of coming on. He didn't want to come on this podcast because he was protecting me. He didn't want me to be a target once I had him on. Do I applaud him for it? Yes, but at the same time, it actually hurts me because I wanted him to come on. So. I apologize, Brian. I had to throw that out there one more, that last piece because it was still in my head. Like your series. Got to get it out of my head.
It's all right. It's a tough day.
Yeah.
I definitely feel what you're going through. Not that not that I'm there with you, but I can feel the emotion, and I'm just sorry for what it is that you're going through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think we're going to have to talk about in general. Like I don't touch politics, and I'm not really going to in this show. But I think we could potentially talk about how do you address politics in your own life, or how do you manage the tension of politics in a way that doesn't cause you mental health issues, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. Because for a lot of folks, politics create a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, lead to things like anxiety and depression. So I'm sure we'll get there. I know you had asked, how did I get into writing about mental health and what led me to write my book series? So, for me, kind of a lifelong, I don't know what the right word is, but a lifelong survivor or struggler with anxiety and depression. And so, from an early age, I would say right around 17, I started having some panic attacks. And at an early age, right, when that starts to affect you, it hurts, and something says to you within your mind and your body that something is not right. And so from that early age, I just kind of went down the path of saying to myself, okay, what is going on here? Identifying what the problem is, anxiety, panic, that kind of thing. And then also asking myself, what can I do about it? How can I improve my own condition in life? And as I walked down that path, so to speak, I started making progress with my own anxiety and eventually my own depression. And kind of like, as I was saying at the beginning of there's a part of me, and there's a part of all humans that are empathetic. Right. And as you went on, as you were talking before, at the beginning of the show, right, I can feel that emotion. I can feel that passion. And for me, when I talked to people, and when I still talk to people about anxiety and depression, when they are dealing with it or have dealt with it, I can really feel that emotion. And that resonates with me specifically because I have also been through a lot of anxiety. I have dealt with a lot of depression. So as I started to make my own progress with both conditions, I turned around and I said, okay, I have ideas, I have insights, I have tactics that I've come up with for myself. I see pain out there in terms of other people suffering from these conditions. What can I do to help? And the most immediate and sort of obvious answer to me was take those ideas, turn them into a book, a blog, podcasts, get that information out there and try to help folks. So that's the mission that I'm on now.
Okay. And so explain. Okay. So I was actually diagnosed with anxiety depression in 2009. So I still have the panic attacks, but like I said, this one today just really threw me out there, and I had to for once I actually had to confront it because I was tired of just letting it come over me and say, oh, well, I'm going to walk away and leave everybody alone and, go isolate myself and yada, yada, yada. Not today. Not today. I was tired of it. And so that's why, like I said, I had to confront that. And for once, I will actually say I'm proud of myself that I did that, because I would never think that I would stand up and literally say what I just said in so many ways. I mean, even though it was politics, but there's more to it, because over these past couple days, like I had mentioned, I have so-called friends that were telling me, oh, Nobody's going to support you. Nobody's going to do this. Nobody's going to do that. Go get a full-time job. You're not going to get disability. This, and this. And you just heard what I literally said about it. And actually, this is the second podcast that I literally said about in reference to the quote-unquote naysayers. In a way, I actually told them to go themselves. But this one, in reference to the politics, was a different turn because it hurts me because it just put a knife in a relationship, or what I feel was a very positive relationship I was feeling. And I just can't take it. So that's why I had to, like the name of your book series, I had to get it out of my head, because if I didn't get it out of my head this time, I'm going to lose. Sure. I'm losing it.
And I think that's a relatable experience from the standpoint of, what you hold inside starts to grow and fester, and eventually that can bubble over to the standpoint of you have an outburst or you have an episode and it affects you in an extremely negative fashion.
Yeah.
People will sometimes use the phrase that you are only as sick as your secrets. And so the idea, right, is if you're holding all of those things in, they become quite a large burden. And eventually the scales tip over and you can't take it anymore. So it is important to get emotion out of you, to talk about things that are affecting you in a negative fashion. And that's one of the most important things about something like talk therapy, just working with a practitioner to say, here's what's on my mind, here's what's bothering me. Sometimes doing that venting gets those emotions out of you, allows you to process those and let them flow through you. And then sometimes once you've done that, right, you feel a little bit better. So props to you for working through that a little bit.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I mentioned about the quote unquote naysayers, they still want me to go back to a psychologist to get real mental health. But and this is what I'm taking out of psychologists. All they do, they listen to you, but here's what they turn around and say. What are you going to do about it? Okay? They don't say, oh, well, here's an idea you can go at. No, they ask you what you are going to do. So if someone's going to ask me what I'm going to do, why do I bother going? So over the summer, I started to do my own type of therapy. Well, first thing I realized is I needed some spiritual therapy into it. So now my therapy is more spiritual than mental. Because I've learned with the spiritual, it actually goes into the mental and really opens it up and says, okay, you've been in here too long, break free, And I've been very proud of myself with that spirit, because what I actually do is I go to church on Sundays now for the first time in 17 years. Okay, 16 years. I went to church for the first time in 16 years. And I've been going every week. I've been very proud of going every week. And then what I do is there's a park right across the street from the church. And I sit there and I just sit there for a couple hours. Just to, just gathering myself together or just meditating or just, not even think about what's going on and just enjoying what's out there. And I tell you, Brian, normally, like some things, I would want to go home right away. Not this. And it's like the best thing. And I do it once a week. It's the best thing in the world. And I could not be any more proud of myself for that. I mean, sit 3 hours in a park, even if it's just sitting there. It's something positive to me. So.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're finding some things that are working for you.
Yeah.
What comes to mind, right, is we live in a stressful world, and with
Mhm.
anxiety and with depression, we have an inclination to go places mentally, off in the
Mhm.
future or back into the past, right?
Yeah.
And folks will often say that a lot of healing and a lot of, rediscovering calmness and whatnot comes back down to reconnecting to the present moment and making room for mindfulness, right? Focusing our attention on what is happening in front of us. So,
Mhm.
what I think of when you say, hey, sometimes I just go to the park and I sit there for 3 hours, is that might be your opportunity to sit there, observe what's going on in the world around you, reconnect to the present moment, get out of your head, right? And put some of those other concerns down. I think that is a great practice that you've established. And I also think that it can be incredibly healing or therapeutic if you make time for that kind of thing, right? A lot of us, we have very busy schedules, we have a lot of commitments. We end up losing the ability to just sit by ourselves and not do something, right? We're addicted to our phones, we're addicted to our computers, we're always on, we're always stressed out. And so, honestly, in this modern age, I think it's a pretty impressive skill to just be able to sit down and kind of do nothing for a little bit, because a lot of us actually struggle with that these days.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about your book series. I apologize again, Brian. I had to pull myself out of into this. But in a way, I thank you for letting me pull it out, because, again, if I couldn't hold it, it's like the negative end of me wins again, and I'm back to where I was back when I was a kid, being put down and not having any value or self-esteem. Today, to my own extent, I feel like I built a little bit of self-esteem by confronting what's going on in the world. And again, I thank you for that. But let's talk about your series. So explain how, even if you have to repeat what you said earlier, what led you into wanting to do this series of Getting Out of Your Head?
Yeah, just kind of slimming it down a little bit from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a solid 10 years dealing with panic attacks, intense and prolonged anxiety, and a couple bouts of major depressive disorder. And, I think for anyone, when you come across those things, it's frightening, it's scary, it's discouraging and all that. But for somebody who's 17, who's looking out at their life and saying, like, I want to do cool things and fun things and live a life that I'm proud of. At 17, I looked out and I said, my mind might get the best of me and I might not be able to live that life that I'm hoping to live. So at that young age, I kind of thought to myself, oh crap, if I don't get a grip on this thing soon, then I might go down the wrong path. So I essentially started talking to a bunch of folks. I went to therapy. I started reading books about mental health. I started essentially looking for different tactics for regulating my own emotions and nervous system. And then I would take those tactics and I would experiment with them. I would sort of do a trial and error kind of process. So I would say, hey, I'm going to class and I have to give a presentation in front of the entire class. I'm nervous about it. I might even be really anxious about it. Let me take one of those tactics that I just learned about in my readings or through therapy and see if that works for me. Yeah. After about 10-ish years, and after talking with a lot of people and seeing how they dealt with anxiety and depression as well, from the standpoint of it really impacted them in a negative fashion, I thought to myself, okay, I have made progress with these conditions over that period of time. And I know there are a lot of people out there who could benefit from some of this information. So that led me to say, hey, let me take these tactics, let me take these insights, start writing a book, start writing some blog posts, put those out there for the world to see. And hopefully in turn, I will help some people. I'll inspire them a little bit and I'll just get them, on their healing journey, so to speak.
Okay. And again, Brian, I thank you for letting me even get a little bit of mine out, even though, like I said, I've been working on this for a couple of months and I've been very happy with my progress, because, I'm going to be 55 in March, and I never really had. I never really accepted myself. You know, I had in relationships I had been cheated on, so I didn't feel loved. In school I was put down and picked on. Now some of those people that actually used to pick on me and put me down and all that are friends, and some of them are actually better than the ones that I've been friends with, even when I was put down and picked on. You know, and it just amazes me, and then I meet all these new people in my life, and even some of that was starting to was stronger, and I was feeling loved, accepted, wanted in a way. Maybe not wanted the way I really feel, it, like the physical want, but at least there when they needed it, and like I said, and that was like the best thing that was going on in my life, because for me to be going on 55 and now realizing there is something better in my life. I just never saw it, or I did see it. It's just under my nose and just not resonating. So, now I started to dig into it and see, what it is. And then one thing leads to another, and we're right back at stage one, even if it feels temporary. And so what do you suggest to like, if someone's starting to realize, or actually before I even get to that question, the one question I have for you, and I will understand if you don't want to answer this. During the time that you were researching and having these mental health issues, were there any thoughts of suicide in them?
I'm happy to answer pretty much any question. And part of my brand, my writing, my delivery is that, the brand is about authenticity, and my stories are as well. So if I, obviously everybody has one or two things in their life that they don't want to talk about. But for me, I want to be authentic. I want to share what I can share. Mm-hmm. That way I align with the brand, and I show folks, right? It's okay to struggle. It's okay to have certain feelings, or all the feelings, right? Because we're human, and humans have a lot of different emotions. For me, I would say on the suicide front, it was more like a suicidal ideation than anything related to actually wanting to do it, if that makes sense.
It was just the thoughts.
Yes. And it was a little
more thoughts. Okay.
It was a little bit like an OCD kind of thing, where the thoughts were intrusive and I had trouble making them go away. And then once it's difficult to make them go away, another thought pops up, which is to say, well, if the thoughts won't go away and the pain won't go away, then maybe I really should do this, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I guess what really drove my largest episode of having those feelings and thoughts was I went through what I would call probably close to a major depressive episode in 2018. It was, I worked with my therapist and also my doctor, and they were like, it's sort of closer to dysthymia, which is like lower grade but persistent depression. But there are some flavors in there that are kind of feel a little bit more like major depressive disorder. The difference is that, like, I was relatively high functioning during this period. Like, it wasn't as though I wasn't getting out of bed. I was still going to work and doing things. I just felt so terrible. I found myself, for a confluence of different reasons, at this crossroads in my life where, and I can give you the whole story, which was basically, I woke up one day And let me go into all the details, and it'll make sense, I think, in the end. I woke up one day. I used to live north of Boston, and in one of the towns north of Boston, there's a big popular fair. And I used to go there with my friends and my family as a kid. So it's this nostalgic thing for me. I have a lot of, fond memories there, but obviously I'm not a kid anymore. I don't go as often as I used to.
Yeah.
So my brother calls me up and says, hey, so his son, which is my nephew, was 2 or 3 at the time, and he wanted to go to the fair, or the family wanted to take him there. So we took him there. And we go to the fair, and as the uncle, I volunteer to take him on some of the rides. Yeah. And I took him on the carousel. I had one of those whirlwind kind of emotions or experiences where I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I remember going on this carousel with my mom. And also thinking, wow, life goes by so fast. And not from an awe and wonder kind of standpoint, more from the standpoint of complete fear of, oh my goodness, life is going to flash by before my eyes. I'm already almost dead. So I start with that kind of experience which really shook me. We spent the rest of the day at the fair, or a couple more hours at the fair. And I was just like, I don't know what to do with this emotion. I'll deal with it later. So I go home that day and I open up my email. There is somebody who's essentially trying to, run a phishing attack or a scam on me, but I didn't pick it up in real time because it seemed kind of legit. So the email said like, hey, Brian, does this look familiar? And sitting in the email is the password. It was a relatively universal password that I used at the time. And to folks who are listening, please don't use the same password across multiple websites. Right. But so because I used it across multiple websites, the spammer was able to convince me of pretty much anything related to the password. So the email says, does this look familiar? Here's the password, puts it in print, and then says, I got the password to your computer. I hacked into your computer. I got all the webcam footage. I have all your contacts and all of that. And if you don't send me a bunch of money in the next 24 hours.
I get them all the time.
Yep. So this was the first time that I had ever seen one of these scams. This was 2018. It was a while ago. I was so freaked out by this scam, thinking to myself, wow, it's embarrassing to say, but most men go on illicit websites, and even though we all do it, nobody wants to get caught doing it. Nobody wants to be outed for it. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm about to get outed for it, and it's going to be horrendous and so embarrassing, and my life is about to be over. So 2 big experiences in the same day, right? The carousel or at the fair, and then the spam attack or the phishing attack. After that phishing attack, I kind of took a breath and I said, I am so freaked out, but let me just pause. Let me breathe. Let me see if I can think about any way to address this. Within 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, let me Google this email or parts of it and see if other people have encountered this kind of thing.
Right.
And luckily, I was able to find that it was a fairly common playbook that people ran to try to get money from you. So that alleviated the immediate fear, but I was still in this really fragile and revved up state of not knowing how to handle all the stress of that day and just feeling overwhelmed. So I went up to bed after I had resolved that issue. I get into bed, I open my computer, and I go to this website, a technology website that I used to go to a decent amount. And on the front page of the website, there is that meme that people kind of enjoy, which is the dog sitting in the kitchen surrounded by flames saying, this is fine.
Yeah. Wow.
I saw the headline and I thought to myself, why are they using this meme? What is the article going to be about? And it says essentially scary things about the climate. And so I click on the article, I start reading, and it was essentially like a gloom and doom take on climate change. And given all the events of that day, right, all the emotion and whatnot, I was so freaked out. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I was just on the carousel with my nephew and I felt as though life is going by faster than I could have ever imagined. And I'm going to be dead soon. And not only am I going to be dead soon, but according to this article, everybody on Earth is going to be dead soon.
Yeah.
And I went into this just horrible, ruminative spiral and depressive like mindset of thinking, sort of almost this mindset of what I would essentially call is nihilism, right? Of what is the point of anything? What is the point of life? Is this all meaningless? And I, just given the emotional weight of all of those things that day, that's the mindset that I spun into for many months. And as I continued going down it, right? If you really sit there and think to yourself, I'm going to die soon. Life is short. The planet might be, eradicated soon. There's no meaning to life. There's no God. Everything's predetermined. If you entertain those thoughts, and I'm not saying that they're true or false, I'm just saying that if you run those thoughts through your mind, it's not a shock to say that you're going to feel pretty horrible. And so my OCD really kicked in during this period and kept sending me those intrusive like thoughts as to say, the climate is doomed, you are doomed, life is short, life is meaningless, whatever, right? And I couldn't get away from those thoughts. So the compulsion part of the OCD sometimes became me trying to, ruminate in my own head, and other times became me thinking to myself, what do I need to do to get out of this? And so I became a little bit obsessed with questions around what is the meaning of life? How do I solve climate change? What are we going to do about climate change? And when those emotions got really strong and when the OCD was hard to manage, that was when I fell into those suicidal ideations of, if I'm just stuck in this pain and life is all suffering, why go on? And that is really probably one of the primary times. There was maybe one other time in my life, but that was the strongest form of, these feelings of maybe not wanting to be here anymore. What really helped me, and I know it's going to sound a little bizarre, and maybe the whole story does, I don't know, but I actually read a book by Leo Tolstoy. I don't know if folks who are listening have read him before. He's not always the most cheerful author, but I read this book that he authored. It was more like an autobiography or a memoir, if you will. It's called A Confession. And he basically went through this same existential crisis that I did. And he said, it feels as though everybody's going to die. You're going to die. You're going to be blown off the planet one day. What's the point of life? What is the point of all of this? And he said, there's a few reactions to that you could have. One is you give in to the thoughts and you say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to be gone. Another is to say, forget about the questions, forget about the doubts, reconnect to the present moment, find your version of God in everyday experiences, reconnect to life and see where that takes you. And when I read that book, sort of a bit of a light bulb went off in my mind as to say, I am disconnected from my own life. If I'm really honest with myself, I am not making progress on the relationship front, and relationships are important to me. I don't really have a career path right now, something that I'm passionate about. And so in working with a therapist, I eventually got to the point of saying the OCD is actually a bit of a red herring. So the OCD saying, hey, what's the meaning of life, climate change and all that, those were distractions. Those were my mind's way of saying something is wrong, and we're trying to make you feel as though those things are the problem, when in reality, the problem lies actually deeper than that. The problem lies within. When you finally get yourself back on the path and correct your life, you won't need to answer those questions anymore. And it took me a while to get there, but eventually I came to that conclusion. The suicidal ideation went away, and thank God it's been many years since I've been in that place.
And like I was saying about, what I started doing during the summer, it's just about the same thing. Realizing that the spiritual was what I really needed to open up. That spiritual was like the key to, like, okay, let's find out what's wrong with Joey's life. What do we need to do to improve it? And like I said, it led from that to where it's at right now. And just all of a sudden I have, like, like I said before, outside of the spat, what I said in the beginning, a lot actually improved. It may not be the way I wanted it to improve, but I started to see changes that I didn't think that I would ever see. And I started to be comfortable with myself, and to the point where, like, I don't feel like nothing's gonna bother me. I mean, if I saw a stray cat, okay, and I love cats, folks. If I saw a stray cat and the cat lets me pet it, it made my day. It just sparked me. It's like, you got this. This day is gonna be great. And then as soon as like I said, as soon as one thing comes right at you, it throws me right back into the negative. But like I said, in reference to today, I said, I am not letting this throw back at me. And I fought back. And for once, like I said, and I will say, I am very happy that I fought back on it. Yes, I may suffer a blow for it. It's going to hurt me a little bit. I may lose stuff that I love, but I couldn't take it anymore. And I could not be any more happier to fight back on it. If it, like I said, everything comes with a consequence. If my consequence is somebody that I'm truly interested in now walks away, then, I have to realize, yeah, I may have screwed up, but it wasn't really because of me,
Yeah, and I think also, right, did you say anything crazy or outlandish? I don't think you did. I think you stood up for something that you were passionate about, right?
Yeah.
You care about human life. You care about human dignity.
Yeah.
And for you to bury those things is to be misaligned with who you are at your core.
Right.
And a lot of our psychological suffering comes down to us having a misalignment with our own values and our own desires in life, right? When we're out on some path that somebody else designed for us and we wake up one day and we say, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
That's when despair sometimes kicks in. So staying aligned with, your own values, staying aligned with your own desires, yeah, sure. Sometimes that can cause you to take a hit, but in the long run, that's going to keep you on the path that you ultimately want to be on.
Right. And like I said, for the first time to confront it and fight back, it felt good. It actually felt good, because I would have just said, okay, goodbye. I'll leave you all alone. Everybody go enjoy their lives. I'll just go into this little hole and just, enjoy what I got there, But I just couldn't this time. I really could not. And like I'm feeling right now, I'm feeling good, even though it's a shameful day of what happened, and especially with tomorrow being 9/11. As this podcast is being aired, with 9/11 being tomorrow, and even during that time, I grew up in New Jersey, Brian, just to let you know. And when the towers hit, I could see the smoke from New York in central Jersey, miles and at least an hour away, an hour to 90 minutes away from New York City. You could see the smoke. And that was another time I had to deal with, because of, all these people died, planes are hitting the towers, and I'm working, and because of that, they sent everybody home because, of the quote unquote madness, they called it. and all the tragedy and stuff, I actually went home for a little bit and then went to my second job because I still had to do something. I had just gotten married at the time. And matter of fact, she even tagged along because she didn't want to be alone, And so, especially with this happening, I don't know if it sets a political point because of 9/11. And again, I apologize for slipping that in there, but it's just so much is going on, and it's really just if it's not one thing, it's another. And so, like I've said in reference to what was going on with today and being what tomorrow is, and it just winds up tearing you apart because you wind up putting relationships and everything in your life based into things that really shouldn't be into it, and like I said, I'm taking a hit for it, and I have to accept the hit because it wasn't their fault. But I literally just let them walk away because I didn't want them to really. It was like I was kind of protecting them from what could have been worse, and the people that are in my life have seen my worst, and like I said, and today, again, I took a step forward and I said, I'm not letting this happen, and I apologize from taking it away from you in reference to it again, but if it was like if you don't, folks, if you want to get your feelings out, get them out, even if it's to a therapist or someone who will listen to you and be there for you. I learned that the hard way, folks. It took me 54 years to see that, yeah, therapists may not be the greatest help because they turn around, most of them, I'll say most of them, will turn around and say, what are you going to do about it? If they were going to make it a self-centered therapy, I could have done that years ago. But it took till now to start the self-centered therapy. But what I will say in my own experience is it took a psychiatrist to tell me that these podcasts that I do was my therapy. And I took one look at him, Brian, and I said, are you effing kidding me? And he's like, no. He said, your podcast is your therapy. And it took a little bit for it to sink in, to realize he was right. And to realize that could have been the start of what I'm at now and what happened with today. So, everything goes in stages. I'm not discouraging people. If you really need to get mental health assistance to see a psychologist, I am not discouraging people from that. I'm not discouraging people from seeking help with mental health professionals. Just because of my experience and Brian's experiences have nothing to do with you. Okay? You had your choice. I'm just, I just explained my theory, my journey. Brian has explained his. Brian can help you with it more than I could. I'll be honest on that, of course. But don't, just because of what I said, don't take everything I'm saying with a full grain of salt. Okay? People are telling me still go back to therapy. Guess what? I've learned therapy does not help. My own therapy is helping now. Even though it's not the therapy they want me to be in.
Yeah.
And one thing I now confront, if you're going to tell me how to run my life, get out of my life, because if I find it, I block you. And I'm tired of people telling me how to run my life when I'm now realizing what my life is starting to be. And if you don't like the way my life is going, guess what? There's the door. Walk your ass out and don't come back. And that's how I look at things now, Brian. And again, I apologize for pulling it away from you and in reference to it, but I want people to understand, just like you want people to understand, the different tracks of therapy.
For sure. And what I would say is that everybody has to figure out what is the best way forward for them, right? Mm-hmm. So for some folks, it's going to be therapy. For some folks, it's going to be an exercise plan, a new diet, tight relationships with friends, significant other, loved ones, whatever. For some people, it's going to be a different combination of all of those things. Mm-hmm. So different things work for different people. And even if you look at some of the literature around the different therapies themselves, a lot of them actually only work a little bit better than a coin flip. So what you're really trying to do is try on all those therapies or as many as you're willing to, and see which of them works for you. You're basically trying to say, I've got 10 coins in front of me. Which of these coins is going to flip over to heads when I flip this thing, right? Which one is going to benefit me the most? So I guess just a quick devil's advocate take on therapy, right, is there are many therapists out there, and a lot of therapists will say that an inexperienced therapist tries to solve all the problems for the client, right? When maybe a more experienced therapist is leading that horse to water, if you will, but knowing that they cannot make that person drink. Right. So sometimes they are asking probing questions such that they are trying to get that person to come to their own conclusions. Because it's kind of one of those things of, if I'm the client and somebody's doing all the work for me, it's not necessarily going to sink in as much as it might otherwise if I have that aha moment and everything comes together and I say, I have figured it out and now I know what to do, right? So part of the therapist relationship is them wanting you to come to the conclusion, so that way you have the accomplishment and the pride of saying, I figured this thing out and now I know how to get my life back on track. Okay. And we actually have a viewer, Too Cold J. Thank you for coming on the live stream and asking, yes, Too Cold J, if you didn't listen to the beginning of the podcast, I kind of brought that up. I didn't mention his name, and we didn't go any further on that because I vented on, well, I didn't vent, but I had to put my position in reference to what was going on. And yes, no, don't be, no. Tugo J, you're fine. You're fine, okay? You didn't understand, and I'm just clarifying your question. And here's the question, Brian, just to let you know, it's political, but I want to bring it up because this is what I was explaining. He asked if we heard about Charlie Kirk. Yes. And like I said, that was the beginning of the podcast. Even though you didn't catch it, you could always replay it will be on YouTube by tomorrow if YouTube doesn't remove it. And like I said before this podcast started, I apologize to Brian if that does happen, because of
the political, the politics and the venting and the supreme cursing in reference to it. So don't be sorry, Too Cold Jed, because you didn't know. So, but what Brian and I are talking about now in reference to it, in reference to different types of therapies. Like I said, I'm not condoning people going to a therapist. I'm not. I want you to understand that. If you feel a therapist will help, then, take that direction. If you need to go to Brian, Brian would be able to help you as well. And Brian, how can people reach out to you if they decide they want to, come to you for advice?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So folks can head to my website, which is getoutofyourhead.com. It's all one word, if you will, no dashes, no underscores, or they can reach out to me on Instagram. The handle there is Get Out of Your Head.
Okay. So here's the website. Give me one moment. Getoutofyourhead.com. I hope I put it out there right.
Looks good.
Okay. And Too Cold J does say hi to you, Brian. So
hi back. Hey,
yeah.
Hi back.
And in reference to Twitch, I'm not a big. I actually heard of Rumble. A friend of mine told me about Rumble, where it's more, open in reference to views and so on. But it costs to actually go on that site in reference to that. All right. So definitely check out Brian at getoutofyourhead.com. If you really feel that you need help, and I will say everybody does, one way or another. If you feel that you need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, if you feel that's the best way for you, don't let my opinion stop you. Don't let Brian's opinion stop you. Okay? It's your choice of what you want to do. If you want to go to Brian, go to getoutofyourhead.com. Let him give you the advice or the ideas that may help you get better. I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm doing my own journey. And, my journey might have taken a slight hit, and it may hurt. Like I say, it may be a hurtful hit, but at the same time, for once, I actually was tired of letting it get to me, and I confronted it. And I thank Brian even for that, because he spared some time of his schedule for me to do that before we started this podcast. So Brian, you're welcome to come back on at any time. Again, thank you so much for everything. I appreciate all the the help, the assistance that you gave our viewers, even to me, because it did help me even today, even with the beginning and literally getting things out of my head, because I was tired of it. I was literally tired of it. So definitely go to getoutofyourhead.com. Definitely reach out to Brian if you feel that he can help you, because I believe he can. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you all.